You're welcome back. It's still VOP this morning on VOP TV. Philip Shaibu, the impeached Edo State Deputy Governor, has called a sacking by the State Assembly a threat to Nigeria's democracy and believes it was a flagrant abuse of power. He added that his impeachment was hushed because of his ambition to contest the Edo State 2024 governorship election under the People's Democratic Party, PDP. An ambition, he says, is a legal right to all citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Shaibu was finally impeached on Monday after months-long political drama between him and the governor, Godwin Obaseki. Shaibu was impeached by the lawmakers after the Edo State Assembly adopted a report of a committee probing an alleged misconduct of the non-impeached deputy governor. The committee found him guilty of sharing official state secrets and thus recommended his impeachment. Hours after Shaibu's impeachment, the Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki announced a 38-year-old Marvelous Omobayo as the new deputy governor and was later that day sworn in by the state chief judge, Justice Daniel Okunbowa. All right, joining us to do justice to this, we have Barrister Henry Ekine, a human rights lawyer. He's joining us from Port Harcourt. And we also have Mr. Chukwuma Okoro, who is a journalist and a public affairs commentator. Good morning, gentlemen.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here this morning.
You're welcome to today's program. Good morning, Mr. Chukwuma.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
All right.
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Okay,
happy to be here.
Same here. We're happy to have you also with us. All right, now to you, Barrister Henry Ekine. What do you make of this? You're a human rights lawyer. Do you really think the impeachment of Shaibu, I'm talking about the former deputy governor of Edo State, do you think actually it is, do we breach anything as regards being undemocratic and even a fragment of power, just the way he said?
I believe that Philip Shaibu has his reasons for his submissions, his assertions. And I also think that if thoroughly examined, there may be some probably considerations that may challenge the propriety of that removal. But I think it's important to state here that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that created the office of the Deputy Governor also vests power in the House of Assembly to begin the process of the removal of a governor or a deputy governor. In the case in Edo State, the deputy governor, really. So it's appropriate to mention that the Constitution actually vests the power in a House of Assembly. That's any of the 36 House of Assembly in the states of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Howbeit, that the ground for such removal must be known to law, must be known to the Constitution. And that's usually where those who become the victims of that removal process will possibly approach the courts to examine the propriety or otherwise of that process. But ordinarily, the Constitution empowers a House of Assembly when there is a report or an allegation of misconduct with respect to the performance of the function of that office holder, whether a governor or a deputy governor or a president or a vice president, as the case may be. So precisely Section 188, with respect to governor and deputy governor, the Constitution empowers the House of Assembly to remove an erring deputy governor. But I think my concern here, to speak this early in this stage of the conversation, is what will amount to that gross misconduct or that misconduct as the Constitution interprets. Unfortunately for me, Section 188 that attempts an interpretation of what misconduct would mean left it rather very ambiguous and open for the members of the House of Assembly on the second bit of it. The first bit of the interpretation is to the effect that misconduct will mean a serious violation of the provisions of the Constitution with respect to the performance of the functions of the office of the governor or deputy governor. That would have been clear because it means that a House of Assembly that is alleging gross misconduct or misconduct will identify a constitutional provision that the governor or deputy governor is violating. But my worry is the second bit of that interpretation that left it open for the House of Assembly to say that what other ground that the House of Assembly may consider misconduct. So that's the reason that I think that can be challenged, particularly in the case in Edo State now, where you say the only ground that the seven-man panel held the deputy governor liable was that he divulged or disclosed official information. So the questions will be asked as to what information really is that. And then, is that information really confidential? It's not going to lie in the mouth of the members of the House of Assembly to determine whether that information in the first instance was confidential. If Philip Shaibu decides to go to the court, it will become what the court will examine, whether the actual information that is been accused of divulging was even one that was within his custody, that's one, and whether it is within the performance of his office as deputy governor, that's two, and whether indeed he was even the one that divulged it or any person that works in his office. And then to whom was it divulged? Was it really an information that the court can identify and agree that is confidential? Those are legal issues that I think that are still very fluid. And then I would require that moving forward, since we are providing some alteration to our constitution, we should be clear as to precise definition of misconduct with respect to the removal of a governor or a deputy governor or a president or a vice president, so that we don't have to conjecture in any way whether a particular ground is justifiable or not.
All right. Now, thank you so very much, Barrister. I'm going to come to you, Mr. Chukwuma. Philip Shaibu has come out to say that his impeachment is going to hamper democracy. On the other hand, Godwin Obaseki is not even talking. My question now is, do you see any handwriting on the wall, particularly on the fact that the feud between the governor and his former deputy, now impeached, still on? Because for him to be quiet and of course accept whatever was given to him, whoever, beg your pardon, that was given to him at this point, do you see any kind of interference in all of this? You can unmute yourself right now.
The thing gets on self-mute.
Okay.
Yes, David, I can. Thanks very much for having me. It's not, one doesn't need to travel far to see that if anyone that has followed the recent developments in Edo politics will understand that, yes, what Philip Shaibu said is very correct. His impeachment, without going any far, is political motivated. In the first instance, he said too that it is related to his political ambition, and that is a fact. It is a very clear fact before everybody, because one will start to reason at what point did they understand that he was divulging official information? When did they suddenly realize? Was it after his ambition crashed, or when was that? So it's very easy to see that his impeachment is clearly motivated. And like Shaibu said, it's a clear threat to our democracy. At last count, he is the 17th deputy governor that has been impeached. In only 24 years of our democracy, 17th. The current president had two deputy governors impeached. Goforolo Akerele and Femi Pedro. In those states, you had two deputy governors impeached. You had, I think, 17 in the last
in
count,
total, yes.
17 deputy governors. That is one too many. In over 250 years of America's democracy, only 3 presidents have been impeached. 3. 2 left office. One was not confirmed. The President Clinton was impeached, but he didn't leave office. So you discover that it is clearly a case of political, is politically motivated. When he wanted to become the deputy governor or the governor of Edo State, the governor refused. But I don't see any reason why the governor will go to that extent. We have had deputy governors who aspire to become governors. Even when their principals disagreed with them, they left the process open. I can cite the instance of Ebonyi State. Martin Elechi didn't want Dave Umahi, the current Minister of Works. He didn't want him to become the governor of Ebonyi State immediately after him. But they refused. Martin did not impede the process. He allowed him to go and run. He ran from the primaries, won the ticket, contested and won. In the recent past, in the 2023 governorship election, the deputy governor of Abia State, Udo Okochukwu, aspired to be the governor.
Right.
After his principal, Okezie Ikpeazu. Okezie Ikpeazu refused. People prodded Okezie to impeach him and all of that. Okezie said, no, look, this process should be open and transparent. Let him go and try. Let him go and contest. If he wins, very fine. It's his legal right to contest to become governor. But you see, I think it's some level of political insecurity from the principals who do not want their subordinates, their deputies to
aspire
to succeed them, and they using the apparatus of the party and the state to ensure, that they obstruct the person's ambition. It is not fair. Like Shaibu said, it's a threat to our democracy. If you are a governor and you think you are in control of the party structure, and if you think you have done well, yes, why don't you allow anybody who wants to contest? Why must you go and hijack the process and plant somebody? Apparently, what you are trying to do by trying to impose someone on the state is to cover the tracks. Is to cover your acts, your tracks, maybe mistakes you have made. So, like Shaibu said, it's really a threat to our democracy, and it doesn't end with the issue of deputy governors being impeached. We have about 7 state governors who were impeached, and in all of those 7, you see the imprimatur, the signature of the federal government, written all over the process of impeachment. If you look at during the Obasanjo era, look at how Dariye was impeached, Joshua Dariye. In Plateau State, look at how Alam Yese was impeached. Most of these people were impeached outside the state. The House of Assembly had to sit, even without referring the alleged crime, the alleged offense to a judicial panel of inquiry. The members of the House of Assembly were gathered somewhere in one room in a hotel in Abuja, and the process of impeachment concluded. So it is a threat to our democracy. And like Ekine said, Barrister Henry Ekine said, now that we are looking at, amending the constitution, it is right that we put that menu on the table. We begin to examine it critically. My worry is the way we are, the political culture we are building over time, the culture of political impunity. If we do not restructure now, if we do not kill those impulses now, and they become to stay and become part of our political culture, it will be very, very difficult for us to change. And when you try to change them, you have to start afresh. Look at what is happening in Latin America. So let's try to build a political culture of transparency, a political culture of accountability. A process should be free and fair.
Okay, then. Now you try to remind us of some governors, some deputy governors that have been impeached since 1999 till date, 17 so far, with Shaibu added to the list. Let's just reel out these governors and the states. Lagos has like 2. He's not. Yeah, this is the first in Edo State. But Lagos, we have Femi Pedro, and for Lagos, Femi Pedro and Koforo Bokno Akirili, one of the female deputy governors, impeached in Lagos. In Osun State, we have Iyola Omishere. From Akwa Ibom, we have Chris Ekpayong and Abiodun Aluko from Ekiti. Biodun Olujimi from Ekiti as well. Late Garuba Gadi from Bauchi. Perema Bobi Elebe from Bayelsa. Sani Abubakar Danladi Taraba. Jude Agbaso from Imo. Sunday Onyebuchi Enugu. Ali Olanusi, Ondo, Eze Madumere, Imo, Simon Achuba, Kogi, Rauf Olaniyan, Oyo, Madi Aliu, Gusau, Zamfara, and just the one added to the list now, Philip Shaibu. How contestable, how many of these governors, I'm going to throw this one to Barrister Henry now. Now, how many of those governors have been able to contest their impeachment and found their way back to government office? That's one. Secondly, you didn't talk about the Constitution. and how the Section 188 of the Constitution talks about how governors can be impeached and gross misconduct, in quote, as one of the reasons why impeachment can take place, why the State House of Assembly can carry out the impeachment of a deputy governor. Gross misconduct, that's pretty ambiguous. That could be anything, really. That could be from not saying hello to the governor to, from the most trivial things. If you can prove it, all right, that could be anything. What is our constitution? Why can't the constitution, basically, what is the role of deputy governors? It's not very defined in our constitution.
Yes, thank you. First, let me say that it's quite unfortunate that we have had this history that have just been probably reiterated here. I never imagined that we have had up to 17 deputy governors removed from office. You asked about governors who had probably successfully gone through the judicial process and returned. I think, to the best of my knowledge, Chukuma mentioned about 7 governors that may have been removed from office, majority of whom never came back. And I think I agree with him in his analysis, and that probably because of the involvement, the extra involvement of some state interests, they never got back. But so my memory, Peter Obi of Anambra State at the time, when he challenged his removal from office, and then when Veji Eteva, his deputy, assumed office after his removal, Peter Obi actually successfully, excuse me, challenged his removal and he returned to office. I do not imagine that this should continue really to strengthen democracy. So it is to that extent that I agree also with Philip Shaibu that when we have this kind of probably mostly reasonable removal of governors and deputy governors, it actually weakens democracy. And analyze that for the election of the office of the governor or deputy governor, the entire state is a constituency. It's completely different from the election of members of the legislature, where you have the state delineated to constituencies. So you can imagine where the entire state as a constituency would have elected and returned a person as their governor or deputy governor, and then the constitution allowed some 19 individuals, in the case of Edo State, to be able to remove him. Of course, not undermining the involvement of the judiciary, that's the 7-man panel. But I think the points I've made, which you've asked again, gross misconduct, as expressed or interpreted under Section 188, remains ambiguous. I've said that when you said probably refusing to greet the governor may be likened to gross misconduct, that's not what the drafters of our constitution intended. That has only become what the politicians have roundabout way.
So basically, the politicians are taking advantage of the ambiguity in the constitution.
Exactly, but then arguably that's why the judiciary is there, to check the excesses of the politicians, because the constitution is clear to the first arm of the interpretation of gross misconduct. It has to relate to the constitution, that is a violation of a constitutional provision. Because when the constitution says expressly that gross misconduct will mean serious violation of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it will mean a violation of the provision of the Constitution. It can't be something you would just import from outside the Constitution. You can't go on a voyage of discovery of your own on the Atlantic and then bring something and you think that is a violation of the provisions of the Constitution. So to my interpretation, that aspect of it would have been clearly, and recall that subsection 1 of section, particularly subsection 2 of section 188 requires that notice of allegation of gross misconduct, and subsection 1 requires the House of Assembly, or at least 1/3 of them, to sign. Subsection 2 says it shall be clearly established as to the particulars and details of that allegation. Okay. So it means that you must refer to the provision of the Constitution that amounts to gross violation of that Constitution, and whether it relates to the performance of the functions of the office of the governor or deputy governor. Okay. So, like it's happening in Rivers State, if a governor refuses to be loyal to a former governor, can it be a ground, a justifiable constitutional ground for removal? The answer would be simply no.
Okay, let me quickly ask you this now. Let me stay with you on this one. Now, should we have state secrets when it involves, people within the state in a place where we also have the Freedom of Information Bill? I mean, this is not some secret between the CIA and Israel, CIA of America and Israel, or the DSS in Nigeria and some country. This is within the state. Should we have, because the reason for impeachment now is basically divulging state secrets. Should we have that as a reason at all?
Yes, I know that we do have the Official Secrets Act, and then we have some provisions in the Criminal Code law in a state a Criminal Code Act with respect to public information. Then we also have the Freedom of Information Act. That one is in respect to non-holders, non-custodians of those information to be able to have a right to access those information in custody of a public officer. So that information first has to be information in custody of a public officer. Then the citizen having a right to access that information. Then you have to apply via the Freedom of Information Act to be able to get that information. But particularly, and that's why I'm worried, that's why I require that the detail of that alleged information in the first instance has to be given and provided in that notice of allegation of gross misconduct. Then the courts alone will be able to determine whether that information in the first instance is a secret, or if indeed if it was even in the custody of the deputy governor. But to answer your question clearly, there are such things as confidential information. Yeah. There are such things as to official secrets, right? But it is the law and the court alone that will determine what information really is within. And the interpretation section of those relevant laws, the substantive laws, will also enlist in the schedule what kind of information that will be marked as either confidential or official secret. But it's not every information of government that is actually official. It doesn't affect national security. Those are the kind of information that can fall within official secret. National security, if you like, and such information that would threaten the existence or, if you like, the smooth governance of the country. Those kind of information could be classified information and marked as official secret. Then, of course, only officers that are empowered by law to have custody of those information or even to share those information that would be able to do so. But I'm also worried that even if we say the immunity provision in our constitution covers the governor and deputy governor, I've actually said this always. That doesn't mean that the governor and deputy governor cannot be investigated, but they can be prosecuted while in office. So if there is any allegation of commission of a crime, why not take out some investigation, keep that file, when the man leaves office, you dust it up and then prosecute him. So we have to be very careful as to what will constitute appropriate grounds for removal of democratically elected officials of government, so that we do not abuse it, as Shaibu has alleged now, that in his own case, it's been abused and is threat to democracy.
Right now to you, Mr. Chukuma Okoro, we are actually talking about the impeachment of Shaibu, and we also know that this happened after a long drama between the impeached deputy governor and Obaseki, the governor of Edo State. Mr. Aigbora Egia, I'm sorry if I actually murdered that. That is the deputy, the majority leader of Edo State Assembly. He was of the opinion that the impeachment of Shaibu is constitutional. But we actually, according to what you said now, you said that it is an issue of some people who does not really like what a particular person is doing, will go on to do the impeachment process and then take out the person. My question to you now is this. If Shaibu actually, the way he said he's going to write to the CJI and then other judiciary heads in the country to contest his impeachment, if virtually that happened, where does that leave Edo State present deputy governor? I'm talking about Adebayo, who actually was elected and also sworn in same day that Shaibu was impeached. Hello,
The
Mr.
law is
Chuma.
very clear on that. Like, yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Go
Can you
ahead.
hear me?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, I think the law is very clear on that. Like Barrister Henry said, there's an opening for him to contest his impeachment, in the court of law. P2B did that, and he was able to be returned to office. The deputy governor of Enugu State, Sunday Onyebuchi, also went to court, and the court had to reverse his impeachment. Unfortunately for him, by the time the court reversed his impeachment, he was out of office. So, but the court now also said that all his entitlements as deputy governor within the period that he was impeached and out of office up until the terminal end of his tenure should be paid back to him and his position restored. So it's very clear that if Shaibu now goes to court, and obtains justice in his favor from the court, pending when the case is dispensed with in the court, he has the opportunity either to come back to office as P2B did when Baji Etiaba had to leave, or if his tenure has expired, the court will now say, look, you have to pay him his entitlements within the period that he was out of office. But I think that is the beauty of law itself, to the extent that it is not status bad, it is not time bound bad. At any point in time you feel aggrieved, you can go to the courts and seek redress. That is the beauty of it all. And for the young man who is now the deputy governor, well, I wish him well. He has a few months to stay in office. The election is at the turn of the corner. The election is at the turn of the corner. And it's also legally not allowed for a governor to operate without a deputy. Henry, if I'm right, I think that is correct.
Yes, you are.
Without a deputy. And that is why they hastily appointed the young man now, who is now his deputy. But in all of this, I think we should, our conversation should also focus more on the issue that Henry raised. How do we rejig the Constitution to the extent that we offer that office of the deputy governor shelter all through the night during his tenure, not just a night shelter in the wilderness, all through the period that he is a deputy governor? How do we constitutionally strengthen that office to ensure that, look, this office, to the extent that he doesn't go to contest powers, with his principal, there is also a legal provision for him to be secure. If you go back to our constitution, you will discover that the office of the deputy governor, like some people have explained, is just a spare tire. And it's the constitution that made it a spare tire to the extent that its only responsibilities are as prescribed as given to him by the governor. So the governor can leave you redundant. And that same thing happens to the office of the vice president. When Atiku Abubakar was having squabbles with Obasanjo boldly on national TV said that he was going to make him a vice president of birthdays and naming ceremonies. And that was what he did. So that conversation is one that we should have. How to strengthen that office, the office of the president, of the vice president and deputy governor. And I think it has to come from the source of law, which is the constitution.
All right,
everything that is happening in Edo State now, well, like I said earlier, it is not strange. It has happened elsewhere. And it speaks to the personal idiosyncrasies, of the idiosyncratic variables I said the other day, of the principals in office. If you think that you have done well, if you think that you have performed very well, and that you have the party structure under your control, under your care, allow anybody who wants to contest to go and test his popularity instead of having to use create entry barriers for the person. Because what has happened now clearly tells me, and maybe other people too, that Philip Shaibu may have had actual political power. He might have had political capital or political value, to contest that position with the person that PDP gave the ticket, and even other people. And that makes Obaseki himself very insecure. So it's a lesson for us all and a lot of other people, to other participants. If you think that you are a governor,
right? Let me quickly ask you this one. As we make to conclude now, Chukuma, as we make to conclude now, what do you think, in your analysis, what does this portend for the parties involved? Now, the PDP and the APC in Edo State as they go into elections in September?
No, what it portends now. The first day we discussed the issue of Obaseki and Shaibu. I did say, I think it was Charles. Charles was on the studio that day. I did say that if Obaseki doesn't take time, he was going to make Shaibu an underdog and eventually make him become what he doesn't want him to be. But I think it's a little too late now. What it tells the other political parties is that, look, Philip Shaibu most likely has political capital. But for now, I don't know how he is going to throw his weight around, because all the parties, I think INEC has already published the list of candidates. The only thing that PDP should be worried now, because at this point, what Philip Shaibu will do is to pull out his own structure
from
within
the party.
PDP, pull out his own structure within the PDP,
okay,
and now use it as a negotiating power, as a base with either the Labour Party or the APC. Unfortunately for him, APC has already disowned him, because he is coming from the APC. He doesn't have a good record with the APC because of what he did with Oshomole. You know, so that is it. The PDP should be very careful, because he is, so that he doesn't put the rug under their feet.
All right.
Since you are pressed with time, but there's a lot more to be said about what is going on in Edo State. We'll take it up another day.
Of course, yes. All right, let's also get barristers' concluding thoughts on this one for today. We'll probably delve deeper another time.
And sorry about that. Before, and of course, while you give us your concluding thoughts, I'd like to also find out what then happens if, in the case of Shaibu going to the CJN and getting, of course, higher courts and getting injunctions, and those injunctions are particularly for him to return back to office after the elections. What then happens to the democratically elected governor and the deputy even after now? Just like the case of Peter Obi, as you make to conclude right now.
Yeah, thank you. Apparently, the Constitution is to the effect that at all times, like you asked earlier, there wouldn't be any vacuum. So there must be a deputy governor. If it were a governor that was removed, immediately the deputy governor becomes the governor and nominates another person to be deputy governor, and then the House of Assembly will confirm that he will be sworn in immediately. Where it's the deputy governor that was removed from office, then of course immediately the governor will nominate someone, as has happened in Edo State, and it will be confirmed and sworn in. If Philip Shaibu goes to the court and then he gets judgment, as Chukuma stated, whether during the subsistence of this term in Edo State or even after, the effect will be that the legal effect, as it is in Rivers State, in the case of Celestine Omehia, the effect will be that the deputy governor was never deputy governor. That's the young man appointed at the moment. That's the situation where Philip Shaibu goes to court, and then he's successful in his agitation, and then it's held that the entire proceedings and procedure of his removal violated the provisions of the Constitution and were not, of course, effective. If it's declared void, then it meant that there was nothing at all to place the deputy governorship of the young man that has been sworn in. That would be the effect. So it wouldn't even be referred in the eyes of the law as the former deputy governor, just as we had the case of Celestine Omehia in Rivers State. But having said that, still on the view of, if you like, concluding or moving forward, I think we need to strengthen our democracy within the political parties, and then the difference between those elected into office and then what the political parties have powers to do, especially as we prepare to the elections in Edo State. Like we stated, almost reiterated, Chukuma and myself, that there is need for us to strengthen the positions of the vice president and the deputy governor clearly in our constitution. I probably would have even recommended again that in the case of the vice president, maybe we'll find a situation where perhaps a person elected as vice president, since that election will take place before convening the National Assembly, should go become the Senate president in some sort. So he has a clear constitutional responsibility and function to perform in such a way that he will not just be, I heard it for the first time, a birthday and a party vice president. The same as I just heard that for the first time from Chuma.
All right then.
And in the same way to the deputy governor. So I think we need to find a way around that. Really.
All right.
All right then. Thank you very
much.
much. We'll keep our eyes on this one as elections in Edo State is just in September.
Yeah.
But we'll keep our eyes on this one and see how things turn out at the end of the day. Now let's get into another conversation now. We're talking about being able to track and assess the performance of ministers using an app. Big question on my mind. Do we need an app really to track performance of ministers when we can actually look at the ministries that they are operating in and what has been given to them? Oh well, let's talk about this one when we come back from this break.